And we have proof that it's not simply a neglect of duty, it's more sinister. The illicit transportation of goods is a lucrative income stream, not just for the smugglers. Watch this video clip. The soldier is negotiating with a smuggler. Not happy with the discussion, he stops the carriers from moving the goods. After a while, the smuggler returns. Watch how the soldier takes his bribe. And just like that, the smuggling continues with the blessing of the SANDF. Is that shocking to you?
I'm shocked to see what this member is doing. What he's doing.
Now, to strengthen our fight against gang violence, I will be deploying the South African National Defence Force to support the police.
Brigadier General Johannes Prince Mkabela, Director Special Acquisition in Defence Intelligence. I started as a volunteer in the then SADF, South African Defence Force.
South Africans, let me ask you a question that should stop you dead in your tracks. The President is deploying the South African National Defence Force to the Cape Flats, to Johannesburg, to Durban to fight criminal gangs. And on paper, it sounds like the strong move we have been begging for. But here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody in power wants you to hear. We just watched a Brigadier General from the SANDF, a senior intelligence officer, a man with a salary, a pension, a career and a future, stand in the dock of the Pretoria Magistrates Court for allegedly trying to bribe an investigating officer. He did not resist temptation. He was the temptation. He and his secretary and his personal lawyer are accused of offering 1.5 million rands to make a criminal case disappear. Not a gangster, not a drug lord, a brigadier general. So let that sink in. If a man who has already made it to the top of the military, who wears that uniform with pride, who draws a government salary and collects a government pension, if he can be the one picking up the phone to offer a bribe, then what do you think is going to happen when we send ordinary soldiers who earn a fraction of that, who are struggling to put food on the table, into communities where gangsters have billions? The President thinks he is sending warriors to fight a war. But he is sending human beings into the path of organized crime with pockets full of cash and questions about their own loyalty. The gangs do not need to break down our doors. They do not need to fight our army. They just need to find the one soldier who is tired, who is desperate, who feels forgotten. And they have more than enough money to do that. So before we salute this deployment, before we clap for the politicians, we need to ask ourselves the question they refuse to answer: who is going to protect us from the soldiers once the gangs buy them? Let's start with the story that broke just this past week, a story that should serve as the canary in the coal mine for this entire disastrous plan. A brigadier general from the South African National Defence Force, a man named Johannes Prince Mkabela, appeared in the Pretoria Magistrates Court. Now, pay attention to the details here, because the details will make your blood boil. This is a senior intelligence officer, the director of special acquisitions within the Defence Intelligence Division. This is not some low-level clerk. This is a man entrusted with the secrets of our nation, a man who holds the rank of Brigadier General, and he is accused of trying to bribe an investigating officer to make a criminal case against him disappear. His secretary, Joshua Tembi Hlongwani, and his very own personal lawyer, Athena Ndaba Mulawudzi, are in the dock with him. Listen to the timeline. It was February 7th, 2026. An investigating officer is busy probing a separate case of intimidation against Mkabela. And what happens? The secretary picks up the phone, he calls the officer and says, "The general is offering 1.5 million rands, just make it go away." 2 days later, because the secretary wasn't enough, the general deploys his personal lawyer. The lawyer calls the same officer and asks, "How much exactly do you want? Name your price to withdraw the case entirely." This isn't a bribe, this is a negotiation. This is a military general treating the justice system like a flea market. And then, on 13th February, the general himself meets the officer face to face. He hands over a cash deposit, 50,000 rands in cold, hard cash, and promises to pay the rest by September. What was he buying? He was buying the destruction of the case docket. He was buying the death of justice. Now, thankfully, in this instance, the trap was sprung. The Madlanga Commission task team was watching, and they moved in and arrested him. But here is the dark psychology you need to understand, the psychological cancer that is eating away at this country. It is called moral licensing. Moral licensing is the phenomenon where people in positions of power, people who wear uniforms and badges, people who swear oaths to protect the Constitution, begin to believe that their status entitles them to break the rules. They think, I am a brigadier general. I have sacrificed for this country. I am above the law. I deserve this. They give themselves a license to be corrupt, and once that license is issued in their own minds, the price tag on their loyalty becomes whatever the market will bear. Now, take that psychology and multiply it by 1,000. The government wants to deploy this same army, this same institution that produces generals like Macabella to the Cape Flats to fight gangs like the Americans and the Hard Livings. Do you understand how much money those gangs have? These are not street corner thieves. These are multinational criminal enterprises. They have more cash flow than some small countries. They have accountants, they have lawyers, they have offshore bank accounts. And they are about to be faced with soldiers who are quite frankly desperate. The government expects these soldiers who are underpaid, overworked, and living in a country with a cost of living crisis to stand on a street corner in Manenberg and resist the temptation of a gang boss pulling up in a Mercedes with a briefcase full of cash. The soldiers are used to the border. At the Beitbridge border post, a soldier might get a bribe of 50 rands to let a truck through, 100 rands to look the other way for a smuggler. That is small-time corruption. That is survival corruption. But in the cities, the stakes are different. In the cities, the gangs aren't offering 50 rands. They are offering a new car. They are offering a house for your mother. They are offering to pay for your wedding. They are offering to make sure your children never go hungry. And they are not asking for much in return. They just want a heads up before a raid. They just want a patrol to take a different route for an hour. They just want a uniform to stand there and look pretty while a shipment of drugs moves through the harbor. And this is where we have to talk about the other dark psychology at play. It is called the foot-in-the-door technique. This is a classic compliance strategy. The gangsters won't walk up to a soldier on day one and say, "Here's R1,000,000, let us run our business." That would be too risky. No. They start small. They offer a small favor. "Hey, soldier, it's hot. Here's a cold drink." Then, "Hey, here's a few $100 to look the other way for 10 minutes. Then, "Hey, here's 1,000 to forget you saw that car." Then, before the soldier even knows what has happened, he is compromised. He is in too deep. He has taken too much, and now the gang owns him. That is how it works. That is how an army supposed to protect us becomes an army that protects the criminals. But let's not pretend this is speculation. We have the evidence. We have the Madlanga Commission. We have the testimony of Lieutenant General Peter Jacobs, the former head of crime intelligence, who stood before Parliament and told them the truth. While the original figure of 80% of police officers in Gauteng being compromised could not be verified in recent search results, other testimonies before the same commission reveal a deeply compromised police leadership. We have Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the KZN police commissioner, who alleged that the disbandment of the political killings task team was done to protect criminal syndicates with links to senior police officials and politicians. He said the decision was not based on performance, but external influence. We have Lieutenant General Shadrach Sibia, the suspended Deputy National Commissioner, who admitted under oath that the task team was disbanded without any review, and who now faces allegations of receiving kickbacks and being linked to criminal syndicates. These are not just incompetent men, they are not just lazy, These are the top echelons of our police service, and they stand accused of being active participants in the criminal enterprise. They are the ones who may have been tipping off the gangs. They are the ones who may have been protecting the Zamas. And if that is the state of the SAP's leadership, what makes anyone think the SANDF is immune? What makes anyone think that the same society that produced allegedly corrupt police generals cannot produce corrupt soldiers? The SANDF is not some alien force dropped from planet Mars. They are South Africans. They are us. They go home to the same struggling communities. They have the same bills. They have the same frustrations. They see the same inequality. They see the politicians living large while they struggle. And then they get deployed to a gangland where a drug lord is offering them a way out. Do you really think every single one of them will say no? Don't forget what is going on at the border fence, where soldiers are on the front lines of corruption collecting 50 rands from smugglers every single day. So now the army is finally being deployed, but it is not being deployed to protect the farmers. It is being deployed to the cities to clean up a mess that the police created. And even then, it is a temporary plaster. It is a political stunt. It is a confession of failure dressed up as action. Because what happens when the soldiers leave? What happens when the SANDF goes back to its bases? The gangs will still be there. The corrupt police officers will still be in their stations. The system will still be broken. And the gangs will have learned something valuable. They will have learned that the government is weak. They will have learned that the only thing standing between them and total control is a handful of soldiers who can be bought for the right price. And they have the money. They have billions. Think about the psychology of that. It is called learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is when a person or a group of people are exposed to repeated stressful situations they cannot escape, and eventually they stop trying to escape. They just accept it. They give up. That is where we are as a nation. We have been exposed to load shedding, to corruption, to crime, to failing schools, to collapsing hospitals for so long that we have started to accept it as normal. We clap when the president announces an army deployment, because we are so desperate for any sign of action that we don't stop to ask whether that action will actually work. We have learned to be helpless human beings. But we don't have to be. We can fight back. We can use our voices. We can use the platforms we have. We can demand accountability, and we can support the voices that are telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth is. Because the truth is this: the deployment of the SANDF is not a solution. It is a symptom. It is a symptom of a government that cannot run a police service, so it calls in the army. Every single function of the state is either failing or being outsourced because the people in charge are either incompetent or corrupt, and in many cases, both. And the tragedy is that we are the ones who pay for it. We pay twice. We pay for the police that don't work, and then we pay for the army to do their job. We pay for the corruption, and we pay for the consequences. We pay with our money. We pay with our safety, and we pay with our future. So, what do we do? What can we do when the system is rigged against us? When the institutions that are supposed to protect us are either broken or corrupt? We can either sit back and accept it, let the anger fester until it turns into despair, or we can fight back. We can use our voices. We can use the platforms we have. We can demand accountability, and we can support the voices that are telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth is. If you have watched this video to the end, then I am asking you to do something. I am asking you to hit the like button. Not because it helps me, but because it helps the algorithm find more people like you. People who are tired of the lies. People who want the truth. I am asking you to subscribe to this channel. Click that button, ring that bell, because we are building a community here. A community of South Africans who refuse to look away. A community that holds power accountable. And I am asking you to share this video. Send it to your family, send it to your friends, send it to your colleagues, post it on your WhatsApp groups, post it on your WhatsApp status, post it on Facebook. Let it spread, Because the only thing the people in power fear is the light. The only thing they fear is the truth being seen by too many eyes. If you want to go further, consider joining the channel membership. Hit that join button. Or if you can't commit to a monthly membership, drop a super thanks donation, just a small donation. It all helps. It helps us stay independent. It helps us keep digging. It helps us give a voice to the voiceless, to the overlooked, and to the majority who are suffering just as much. Subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Tell me what you think. Tell me your story. Tell me how you are feeling right now. Because we are all in this together.